Hello, my name is William Bixler, and this is my first pass pitch, The Crimson Curse. The Crimson Curse is a 2D action survival game where monsters and demons automatically spawn whenever the player is hit by an enemy attack. This causes players to consistently move to avoid being attacked, that way they do not create swarms of monsters. Here you can see a zombie approaching a player. When the zombie attacks the player, another zombie is spawned nearby the player. Therefore, there are now two zombies. What does the player do? Well, the player must save his survivors, and to do so, the player can shoot enemies with weapons, such as the revolver or other upgraded weapons. The player can also unlock cages holding captive survivors by killing the defending goblins in the surrounding area. The rules. Players must escort survivors to survivor camps in order to finish the level. However, not all the survivors in the level must be saved in order to complete the level. If the player or all the survivors are killed, however, the game is over. Players can only have one weapon equipped at a time, but may acquire multiple weapons throughout the whole game. These weapons can be stored at the base. Players can only escort one survivor at a time, but there may be multiple survivors depending on the level. The mechanics. If you are hit by an enemy attack, another enemy will then automatically spawn nearby. This causes the player to constantly keep moving, because if they don't, they will be attacked by multiple enemies, creating more enemies, and quickly creating a crowd of enemies that is too overwhelming for the player to handle. The player must also escort survivors back to survivor camps, and by doing so, the survivors reward the player with in-game currency that can be used to purchase upgrades for their weapons. The enemies in the game include goblins, skeletons, wraiths, and zombies, and the Crimson Spirit. However, the Crimson Spirit is not an enemy the player attacks, and is the initial villain the player meets who gives the player the curse that causes all the other enemies to attack the player. Similar games to the Crimson Curse include State of Decay because of its similarity in rescuing survivors and taking them to a base, and Doom because of the style of enemies in the game with massive hordes of demons. Some of the risks for this project include the quantity of assets that must be created in order to complete the project, the complexity of the animations required for spawning all of the different enemies, and the amount of coding required to complete the project as well. However, this project should be able to be completed by a group of 4 to 5 students in a 3 to 4 month period. A basic example of the player decisions in the game are shown here, where a player has stopped moving to attack the goblins, making themselves vulnerable, but by killing the goblins, the player is able to unlock the cage. Here you can see, after the goblins are killed, the cage is unlocked and the survivor is freed. Once the survivor is freed, the player escorts the survivor back. Thank you for watching my presentation, and I hope you enjoyed it.